Dear officer, I want you to know that I see you. I see you choose the booth in the restaurant that allows you to have your back against the wall. I see you pulled over 2 hours past your shift as you finish your reports under a streetlight. I see you as you direct traffic in the scorching heat, the gusting snow, and the downpour of rain. I see you as you watch mainstream media crucify your character while minimizing your cause. I see that you are tired, frustrated, and misunderstood. I see that you are hurting as the world watches you bury your brothers and sisters that died because they were guilty of one thing: wearing a uniform with a badge. I see you. I see that you are flesh and bones just like me. I see your cause, and I want you to know that I appreciate it. I hear you. I hear the sound of the garage door open after a long night of consistent tragedy. I hear the sounds of your heavy footsteps, and I can instantly tell what kind of day it has been for you. I hear the sound of your duty belt hit the kitchen table as you relieve your back from the 30 extra pounds you've been carrying all day. I recognize the sound of Velcro as you unstrap your body armor and your work boots. I hear the sound of your little boy's bedroom door open as you enter his room. I hear the sound of you kissing his cheek and whispering that you love him. I hear the sound of your heartbeat as you choose not to share your day because you know that it will only scare me. And even though you do not speak, I still hear you. I still know that something happened on your shift that has broken your heart. I feel you. I feel the difference in the way you hug me before you leave to go to the grocery store and the way you hug me before you leave for one more night on your beat. I feel the grip of your hand as they wheel you back to surgery to fix an injury you have sustained on the job. I feel the wetness of your tears as you try to make sense of the tiny life that was taken by the hands of her parents. I feel the sigh of relief when you see your little boy running towards you after you've experienced too much darkness in the world. I feel the sinking of your morale as you watch a very vocal and sparse opposition flood social media with their misplaced passion for their idea of justice. I feel the way you look at me as you read that one more of your brothers or sisters have fallen victim to a hate crime. We both know it could have been you. I need you. We need you. I know the world is making you feel like the only allies you have can be found in each other. I know that it is becoming increasingly more difficult for you to put your life on the line for a world that has seemingly turned their backs on you. But I also know that won't stop you. What the world seems to forget is that you don't suit up every day for their approval. God knows you don't do it for the money. You do it because it's your calling. You do it because you believe that you can help goodness persevere in the face of evil. You've chosen to be a warrior, and warriors don't hang up their hats because of the opinion of someone else. I wish I knew how to fix it. The only thing I know how to do is support you. I'm aware that there isn't a magic solution that will make the world see you for who you are. I just want you to know that I see you. I need you to know that you are appreciated by a vast majority who is in your corner. You are honorable. You are courageous. You are worthy of a nation's support. We see you. We hear you. We love you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for getting up one more day to protect my family. You are undeniably my heroes.
I see you. That's a letter that Elizabeth Schiffwell wrote. We're very thankful to Humanizing a Badge for that video. It's been a horrific, tragic month, the month of November. We have lost 20 police officers in the line of duty, and the month is not over. We still have, a few hours around this country to go. I can't remember the last time we lost 20 in a month. If that happened all year long, we would have over 240 law enforcement deaths. That would be the highest we've had since 1974. And so it's something we must pay attention to. This is an episode that you need to see. This is an episode that all your friends and family and coworkers need to see. We're going to have a national expert in active shooting on our show here in just a few minutes to talk about what happened at the Ohio State University this week, to talk about how we can prepare for what is likely to come and what has already come on the streets of America. And so do us a favor, share this live feed on your timeline. We're also live on YouTube, live on Facebook. Share this right now so everybody that you know can watch what is not being done by anybody today. This is a live television show dedicated to law enforcement about law enforcement topics. And so that's why it's important, and we need to get as many people as possible watching this. Of course, you can watch all of our archived episodes every Wednesday night. You can watch those at any time, 24 hours a day, live on lawofficer.com. At the very top, you'll see Law Officer Live. Click that button. You'll be able to watch all the episodes. It's very tremendous and an honor to be able to do it. But tonight's a somber night. What we've been seeing go across the country has broken everybody's heart. I didn't think of a better thing to say than what Elizabeth just said to you. I see you, we see you, and tonight everyone needs to hear what we have to say, so please share what we're talking about. This month we've had 11 police officers shot and killed. We've had 8 police officers killed in vehicle-related incidents. 4 of those were intentional vehicle assaults. And then we've had 1 officer die of a heart attack. Now, those are the 3 leading causes of deaths in law enforcement historically. So it's a little ironic that those are the 3 that's happened this month. The 11 gunfires is startling. Our gunfire deaths are up 63% from last year. Our overall deaths are at 132 right now as I speak, and that is up 13% from last year. This must stop. The rhetoric against law enforcement that is filling people's hearts with hate against law enforcement from the media and from politicians, from those that want to do us harm, it all must stop. And so what we're about here at lawofficer.com is doing everything we can to empower you to make sure it stops. So I'm going to give you 3 things that everyone needs to do right now as a police officer. Number 1, training. Forget minimum requirements. Forget the bare minimum. Forget training to be anything other than the way your life can be saved. You must go home at night, no matter what, no matter whose feelings get hurt, and it comes down to training. We hear a lot about, don't train to be warriors. Yeah, that's fine and dandy until somebody shows up at a school and starts shooting or stabbing everybody, right? And then you want a warrior to show up, and we had a warrior show up this week. We'll be talking about very soon. So the training needs to be on survival training to be safe. I'm not dismissing any other types of training. That's important. Not set through a classroom today with CPR dummies, okay? No offense to CPR individuals, but, they call them dummies in training. That training is important. That training actually saves lives, but at the end of the day, we must focus on officer survival training. That is never going away, and this year is an example of why we need to continue it. We need leadership. We need leaders that will stand up and give our officers the tools, resources, and training they need to be safe. Law enforcement is filled with too many weak leaders, and I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. We are going to call you out, and we're going to call for the courageous leaders to stand up. We sponsor a seminar here at lawofficer.com. You probably see it at the bottom of our pages in some of our ads called Courageous Leadership, and it's all about leaders must stand up, be courageous, do the right thing. No matter what people say, do the right thing by your officers. We're not saying to defend an officer that's wrong. We're saying to protect an officer that is right. We're not asking for special favors from the public. We're just asking for fairness. And so leaders must be leaders, and that entails giving your officers equipment and training to keep them safe. And then secondly, we as officers must take every precaution we can. You may work for a bad chief or a bad sheriff or a bad supervisor. That does not dismiss our responsibility to do everything we can do to go home at night. Wear your seatbelt. Take your backers. Be safe. Take your time. Don't rush. Do things smart. Most police officers are injured because of right here. not because of a skill. We make poor decisions in stress. Do everything it takes. And if you're out there right now watching us and you say you don't get the adequate training because of your department, that's no excuse. Go out and find the training. And if you can't find it, you contact us. Tell us where you are. We will find training for you. And if cost is a problem, we will take care of that as well. This is what we're about here at lawofficer.com. And so we're very fortunate. We're very humbled to be here. And we're only here because of our sponsor. We are sponsored. Tonight's show is sponsored by Blue Armor. It's the only supplement company for law enforcement, by law enforcement. And what we love about Blue Armor is unlike all the other supplements we've seen out there, Blue Armor is GMP certified, good manufacturing practices. And all that means is what the bottle says is in the pill is actually in the pill. Pretty scary stuff. So if you're taking supplements, which there's a great place for law enforcement officers and certain supplements to make us better at our job. That's what Blue Armor's doing. They've got 5 products that focus on law enforcement officers doing their job. And it ranges from sleeping better, restoring your health better, getting leaner, having more energy, all kinds of good stuff. We've gotten lots of great feedback from your audience on those supplements. So check them out at bluearmor.com. They're really doing us a huge favor by helping us do these episodes each week. And please tell them you heard about it from us. And so that's quick. That's down. We're into the show. Spread the message because we're about to bring on a special guest for you, Bill Gage. Bill Gage, we've known Bill Gage here at lawofficer.com for quite some time. He has been writing articles for us for about a year now, and all of his articles get a lot of interest. So we want you to check him out on our website because he wrote one just today called What to Remember About the Ohio State Terror Attack. It's out on the front page of our website. Excellent article, and we're going to expand on that today. We're going to talk about some of the things that Bill has done in the past. Bill is a former Secret Service agent for over 12 years. He's a current police officer. We love that here at Law Officer. You know, it's easy to find, no offense to the retired guys and gals, but it's easy to find them, right? And we do have some that we work with. But we love the folks that, guess what Bill did an hour ago? Bill was at a domestic call, right? And then he gets home, he's about to come on live with us. And so he's talking from a perspective that is real, it's timely, and it is in the present. And that's what we love about Bill and all of our authors and writers that are regular police officers on the street. That's really what makes us stand out from the rest if you really pay attention to that. Bill's a former SWAT officer. He works as an active shooter and security consultant for various companies. He's given numerous public presentations on the issue of active shooters. If you've paid attention to our website, last night we featured one of his interviews on C-SPAN. He's been on CNN. He has a bachelor's degree from the Virginia Military Institute and a master's degree from Boston University. And he's without the accent. Pretty impressive stuff. But Bill's a current police officer, as we said, in Virginia right now. His article is on the front page of our website, What to Remember About the Ohio State Terror Attack. And Bill Gage, how are you doing, sir?
To be with you finally. I know this was sort of a dream and vision of yours to do these live broadcasts. So I'm really excited, Travis. It's great to be here.
Yeah, Bill. I mean, we have in-studio guests all the time, and I know I've been talking to you about doing this because we know this is a game changer. Once we can go live to any of our experts around the country, to any of our authors, that's a game changer for what no one else is doing. And here you are. You're pioneering this, sir. You're the very first, so thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Now, Bill, I know a couple of days ago, as we all did that morning, that we saw play out at the Ohio State University. I'm told that you've got to say it's the Ohio State University. We won't get into that on why that is, but we all saw that play out where initially it was reported as an active shooter. We eventually came to find out that it was a kid that had run his car up on a sidewalk and hit some pedestrians and got out with a knife and started attacking people. And we all saw that play out throughout the day. And I just wanted to ask you, as an expert yourself, someone that's taught this and spoken about this across the country, what were your initial thoughts when you saw this playing out in Columbus?
Well, like everybody else, Travis, my first thoughts are, geez, I hope this isn't Virginia Tech again. I really hope the students there are safe. And hopefully there'll be a minimal or hopefully no loss of life. I've been to Columbus many times. I love the city. It's a great place to visit. I love the university. I've been there many, many times. So those are my first thoughts. And, as the story played out, I was watching the news. It was my day off. And I'll be honest, when the story broke, I just pulled into a grocery store parking lot. I know you never get errands to do from your wife on your days off, Travis. I had a long list of things to do. And, like some law enforcement officers, you get a little bit complacent. And true story, Travis, I had my off-duty gun in a bag as I'm listening to the story break. And I thought to myself, we can't afford in our profession to be complacent. So as the initial reports came out, I strapped my gun on and then went in shopping, and came back, and obviously the story had broke. So, I was listening to the events as they unfolded, and, I think the media is very reserved nowadays. When these attacks happen in the United States, they don't want to jump to conclusions and automatically blame it on a terrorist act, especially, and blame it on some sort of Middle East actor. So the media was very reserved, and but as the events wore on, it became clear what had happened.
Yeah, they certainly seem to be very hesitant to call it terror. Now, I do agree that we don't need to call it terror unless it is terror, but it didn't take a rocket science to figure out by midday what was going on, did it not?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I had my own suspicions, just being as many times as I had been in the Columbus area. I knew they had a very large Somali population. So myself, other friends and colleagues in the security industry, we began texting each other back and forth that, hey, they do have a large Somali population there. I wonder if it's related to that. But additionally, Travis, as a cop, I'm thinking to myself, especially now as reports are coming out, this officer, how many accidents have you responded to, Travis, in your career? And you're thinking this officer, he's getting reports of a pedestrian struck. So he's probably thinking, oh, geez, I got an accident to work. There's a pedestrian struck. I got to get an ambulance, all the things that cops do driving to accident calls. And he gets there and people are screaming, a man with a knife, and help us. And, he's forced to engage this guy. By all reports, he gave him command to drop the knife. He didn't. And Travis, I can't tell you how proud I am of our profession. The more that's coming out of this story, that this guy did everything right. This officer from Ohio State did everything right, and the highest standards, performed under very stressful conditions, the highest standards of our profession. So as a cop, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, and I tell you my first thought, Bill. First off, I've been to Columbus as well. I've been to the Ohio State University by sheer accident. I'll tell you where I was going. You're probably familiar with it. I went to Rogue Training. It's a manufacturer of CrossFit equipment and gear, probably the largest in the world. And I Googled it, found it, and as I was driving to it, right across the street was Ohio State. So I had to see the football field, so I saw that because we've all heard about that. But what struck me about that university was how large it was. And so the idea that this cop was literally within a minute able to respond to this incident, how fortunate are we that it wasn't a 10-minute response, because things could be quite different today, could they not?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, that's some members of the media, from friends that I have, had reached out to me from various media outlets, asking for my thoughts, and I wasn't able to go on camera that day, but just that was the first thing that I told a couple media outlets was, listen, if this ends up being some extended security situation, Ohio State's a vast campus, and it's going to take law enforcement quite some time to, clear multiple academic buildings, to ensure the safety of the public. We're talking hours and hours. So definitely a very large campus. I'm not sure how the officer, maybe it was just pure luck. Travis, maybe he just happened to be in the area that he was able to get there so fast. But it is a large, large campus.
And really, right after, my initial thought also was this, Bill. I want to know your thoughts on this. Is that officer, you're right. It looked like everything was textbook, spot on. His training kicked in, and my thoughts are there's a lot of trainers out there that we must thank for this, because this officer did not just wake up and learn how to do what he did. He was trained well, and he rose to the level of his training in a stressful situation. So how important is training when it comes to these situations?
Oh, it's very, very important, Travis. And, there's a lot of dynamics of this situation you can look at. You've been in law enforcement a lot longer than I have, Travis. You looked at this officer, according to reports, had only been on about 2 years. It's a cancer in our profession, Travis. The complacency. Let's be honest, it happens. We can't deny it, Travis. In the law enforcement profession, complacency it kills,
Right.
and it's a cancer. And you look, this officer only had about 2 years on, so we hope maybe he didn't have time to get complacent. He was probably highly trained, just being a fresh graduate of the academy. So as I talked about in the article, he probably still had that edge.
Mm-hmm.
Law enforcement is still new to him. So absolutely, Travis, the training is important. And it's good to see a lot of agencies are providing some sort of active shooter training, even if it's classroom, tabletop. My agency participated last summer in a very large multi-agency exercise. They actually adopted what's called the Rescue Task Force model. So even those dry runs, there wasn't even blank fire, these scenarios, but it was a joint exercise with fire EMS folks. So even those can be beneficial.
Right. Now, in your article, Bill, and it's excellent, everybody needs to go look at that article and share that article. It's on the front page of lawofficer.com. You talk about that the debate about campus law enforcement is over with. Talk to our audience about what you meant by that.
Absolutely. I have been to the police academy I went to here in Virginia. Travis is a multi-agency academy, Northern Virginia Criminal Justice Academy, phenomenal place, incredibly professional instructors. And the George Mason University of Police attend that academy as a partner agency. Phenomenal folks, very professional, very competent, very well trained. And I have some friends from the academy and brothers in law enforcement, brothers and sisters that I still talk to that are police officers there. And they talk about the challenges working in a campus environment. Okay, a lot of times there's a lot of non-judicial sort of issues they deal with, whether that's they talk to an RA rather than issuing a summons or an arrest. So they're forced to deal with that a lot. They have a lot of ancillary duties, unlocking doors, parking enforcement. So it's definitely a little bit different than traditional law enforcement. But listen, as I talk about in the article, and these friends tell me all the time, listen, they handle sexual assaults, they handle domestic assaults, robberies, larcenies. The larger the university, the more of those traditional type policing calls they're going to see. And, look what just happened just recently, Travis. We had a Wayne State police officer. Do I have the university correct, Travis? Wayne State?
It is.
Yeah. Killed in the line of duty on something that cops do every day. From what I've read and understood, he was trying to do an investigative stop, something that we all do on a regular basis. And that campus police officer lost his life. So it's very clear now, Travis, in my opinion, that this debate about disarming campus police should be settled. And I get it. Listen, it should be a university, a free, open environment for learning. Students should, not feel threatened. And I understand that. But these officers are out there a lot of times in very dangerous situations, and they have to be able to defend themselves.
Well, I have to agree with you. I roomed 10 years ago with an assistant chief at Butler University, a very liberal university, but they had their own police department. And they had lost an officer in the line of duty just a few years before that. And he told me at the time, sort of what you're telling me, that how excellent the training was, how excellent the personnel were. I visited a few times, and I have to tell you, I agree with you 100%. In fact, in some ways, we may see more challenges with our campus police officers because they have to deal with kind of so many more sensitive items as in mandatory reporting than what a local officer has to deal with.
Absolutely. And listen, I tell people all the time, and I've said in plenty of my articles, Travis, that we're not perfect in law enforcement. We make mistakes. And when we do, we should be held accountable both by our own agency and the legal system. But there have been a few high profile incidents where campus police officers, I know there was one in California a year or so ago with the pepper spray incident. I know that was highly publicized. So I think some people have used those incidents to call for the disarming of campus police. And, make no mistake about it, Travis, our country is debating. There's an internal debate now on the role of police. It's interesting. When I was writing the article, Travis, I read I came across an article from 1984 from Kelling, who's a very famous criminologist,
Right.
one of the founders of broken windows theory. So this was a paper he wrote in 1984 talking about the role of police in society and how society is going to question the role of police. It was very interesting, Travis, that he wrote this in 1984, and here we are, over 30 years later, and we're still dealing with this issue.
Well, and we have to remember, I mean, people act like that policing came from some perfect, pristine environment. I mean, Sir Robert Peel, the founder of modern law enforcement, it was controversial when he decided to put plainclothes officers out on the streets. The public became unglued because of that. So there's always sort of been this tension, so to speak. But today, I think you would agree, we're more professional, we're more trained, we're more willing to listen to others than really ever before.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there are times that I'm very proud to be a cop. More so than others, I'm always proud. I wake up every day, and I'm very proud of our profession. I was very proud, with the officers' actions at Ohio State.
Now let's get back to this attack, Bill. It certainly seems like after Columbine, these attacks kind of focused on shock and awe, lots of bodies, lots of, multiple suspects. But what we're seeing lately, we saw in France where somebody mowed down a bunch of pedestrians in the Bastille celebration. And then we just saw this in Columbus where this kid mowed down pedestrians, gets out with a knife, and we know that he got inspired from being online. He made some Facebook post about that to terrorism stuff. So it seems like we're seeing more of these lone wolf attacks, these individuals that are being, educated online, and they're being, propped up by even overseas, terrorists to do these sort of things. Is that your take? Is law enforcement really prepared for that?
I think we are prepared, Travis. I think the public is who's not prepared. Let's face it, these attacks are cheap, they're easy to pull off, and they could happen in any town or city in America. We are a globalized society now. Our country is globalized. There are people from all over the world that live in every community in the United States. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's good. I've traveled all over the world. I think it's very important to experience other cultures. And as I tell my son all the time, there's a lot to learn from other cultures. But let's face it, we're a globalized society, and there could be, like this case in Columbus, what early reports suggest that this guy lived a normal life, was working, going to school, and somewhere along the line became disenfranchised, even recently, and decided to carry out this act. So I think law enforcement, we're ready for it on a number of levels. I think it's the public that's not ready. Imagine if these things start happening, Travis, every week or every month. I think the public's really going to start asking a lot of questions.
Well, we're coming up on times of the year where we're really susceptible to that, with the mall shoppers and large crowds in certain areas. And you're right, one individual can do a lot of damage. And as far as training, Bill, I know you do a lot of talking, a lot of training and consulting with law enforcement around the country. What are you telling law enforcement today if they call you up and say, Bill, what can we do right now to prepare for this?
Well, the first thing, and Travis, this doesn't take any money. It takes nothing. It's the mental preparation. So what I always tell people is be ready. Do you think that Ohio State officer woke up Monday morning and thought, I'm going to have an active shooter incident today? Probably not. And how many times do you think he heard in the locker room or in the back parking lot or in the hallways of his police department, those famous words, it'll never happen here? I'm sure he's heard that at his station, Travis. We've all heard that kind of talk amongst our fellow officers. So that's generally what I say is, listen, be ready. And it's like you said in the intro, some of these things, the mental preparation doesn't require any time on the range. It doesn't require any money. There's some great books out there. I know Christensen has one that I read a year or so ago. It talks about sort of doing police meditation. And sometimes I find myself...
You're talking about Lauren Christensen, Loren, yes. Right?
Yes, that's him. Yeah, great book. It's a little bit hippie-ish. It's a little bit out there, but I find myself sometimes, Travis, the mental preparation, driving into work, doing some of that meditation, trying to keep myself calm, and focusing on, my job responsibilities. That requires no time at the range. I do it on my way to work, even if it's just 5 minutes, going through, scenarios in my mind. What would I do if this happened? What would I do if that happened? And one of the other things too, Travis, is training breeds confidence. So the more you train, the more confident you are in your abilities. So, I notice myself when I go to a training class, my first day on the street, after I just got done just recently with a 2-week training course, and your first day back on the street after being in training, you just have this little bit of an edge to you, because it breeds confidence.
Yep. I love what you said about the podcast. We want everybody to subscribe to the On the Beat podcast. That's Law Officers Podcast. They're less than 30 minutes. So if your drive is longer than 30 minutes to and from work, the podcast that I like to listen to get me mentally prepared for when I get to work is the Jocko podcast, Jocko. We're not affiliated with them. They wrote a great book called Extreme Ownership. It's a leadership book, former Navy SEAL. But in his podcast, he talks about the mindset. And he has a little saying, and he talks about it every single day. And I tell you what, you want to be ready for work, listen to On the Beat, and then go over to the Jocko podcast, and it's really going to get you ready, because you're right, Bill. Mindset is everything. And I think in law enforcement, we have been beat up so much by outside influences, the media, social media, politicians. We've just been beat up. That could play in people's minds. That could make people hesitate. What do you think about that?
Should just be white noise, Travis. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect how I'm going to do my job. Yep. I have a very close family member that I love. I'm very close to her, and she forwards me a lot of negative police articles that she finds on the internet and Facebook, and I read them, and I just kind of giggle a little bit. Listen. I have followed some of the I don't want to call them anti-police, but I have followed some of the movements, just out of curiosity. I'm very familiar. I call it BLM. It's just short, instead of saying that Black Lives Matter, but I followed BLM. And, as I said a little bit ago, if our country is seriously questioning the role of police in society, I think some of us in law enforcement, we should give that some credence and listen. And if some of the proposals are good, body cameras, if proposals like that serve our profession better, then so be it. There are some things that should be absolutely non-negotiable, such as disarming the police.
Well, one of the things that groups like BLM talk about, and I think we both agree, is that de-escalation is a good thing. And you talk about that in your article, Bill. But when it comes to what happened at this university this week, talk to us about de-escalation in those incidents.
Absolutely. And there is a very small percentage of our profession. Let me back up, Travis. Most of police work, and I know you'll agree with this, is routine, non-combative, low threat environment type calls, report taking. There is a very small percentage of our profession that requires the use of deadly force. And so clearly this incident in Ohio State with that officer, clearly that small percentage, but he was ready. And that's what was so interesting about it is, that such small percentage that we encounter, you find officers that either hesitate or make bad tactical decisions. And by all accounts, it sounds like this officer did everything correct. So, back to de-escalation for a sec, Travis. Listen, as I said in the article, I'm a big proponent, a large fan. I think it's something probably missing in our profession. And as I talked about in the article with Klinger, I don't know where it went in our profession. He talks about how he was taught as a young rookie these skills, and I don't know where that got lost in our profession. How about your own experiences, Travis? Were you kind of taught by senior officers? Can you remember back that far? Can you remember some of the your senior officers kind of teaching those skills?
Absolutely. And the famous saying was, it's easier to talk somebody into jail than to fight him to go to jail. And that's always served me well. I'm sure it served you well as well. Absolutely.
The one that I've heard and I use, more bees with honey. And so, yeah, it's a skill set, but it's a real challenge. I just had a conversation with another officer today. The real challenge in law enforcement, is, and Klingler has a great quote in his book where he says, law enforcement requires a young body, but a keen mind. And, what does he mean by that? Well, listen, the shift work, the midnights, the getting up for court on no sleeping and court all day, going back to work, those things take a toll, but it requires a keen mind, the ability to judge situations, discern, as I always say, when is the best time, for the sword, and when's the best time, for a little bit of carrot. So, it's difficult, and that's the challenge for our trainers, Travis, around the country, is how can you take a civilian off the street, and in a lot of cases a millennial, okay, take them who's had no exposure to law enforcement. They decide they want to enter our profession. You give them some training, a gun and a badge, and you send them to these classes where you teach them, hey, listen, every call you go on, you may die, somebody may kill you. You got to be ready to defend yourself. So how do we take that new trainee and give them, the experience that these senior officers have in a very short amount of time?
Well, I think it comes back to who we hire. It's a maturity factor, and the only way to predict future behavior is past behavior. So we must hire people, do adequate background checks, look at their employment history, at their relationship history, and I think that's where it starts. And I think too many of our agencies spend too much time on the back end, i.e. investigating officers, when they should be spending a lot of time on the front end investigating their backgrounds before they're hired.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there are some people that will just never pick up the de-escalation skill, no matter how hard they try. Right. They might be good officers in other aspects. I know I work with some. I'm sure you have in your career, Travis. It's a real skill, and it just takes time to learn that. Unfortunately, as I talked about in the article, I had to learn the hard way, and it was only through just dozens and dozens of citizen interactions and sort of counseling by senior officers that you just sort of learn this skill.
Who's really good at de-escalation, Bill, is stewardesses and restaurant waitresses, right? I mean, you see it every day. Every time you fly, people start getting upset, and you see these stewardesses talking people down. Do you not?
Absolutely, absolutely. And they are very good. There are other professions I think that are good at it. My wife's in healthcare, and she uses the term all the time, bedside manner. And you've probably heard that. Guy could be a great surgeon or great doctor, but he can't communicate with a patient. He's terrible. And so it kind of ruins that skill. And, I'm a big proponent of de-escalation. I've tried to read as much about it as I can. I've kind of been fascinated with it, especially lately with the, all of the negative perceptions and negative stuff being placed about law enforcement and social media. My passion, Travis, has been, these police citizen interactions, as I say in the article. Listen, the goal in every single call should be both of you walk away. Now, somebody may be going in handcuffs, but the point is both people walk away. And, how can we do that in law enforcement? Is it less lethal? Is it better training? I don't have the answer, and it's sort of my passion. And one of the things I enjoy doing is going to a call for service that may involve, I may have to be stern and very assertive, but I accomplish the goal of both people walking away. And I love when either people tell me, the citizens, maybe the suspects, tell me afterwards, hey, that was different. What they mean by that is, I'm used to being like talked down to. Nobody's taken that extra 5 to 10 seconds to talk to me about what's actually happening here. And, how hard is it to tell somebody, hey, listen, you're just being detained because you match a description of a robbery suspect. Give us just a couple minutes. We'll sort this out. We'll get you on your way. How difficult is that? And unfortunately, listen, I get it. Officers were all impatient. Now, the radio's squawking in the background. You got your sergeant asking what's going on. But listen, slow down, take some extra time, and, de-escalate the situation.
Well, it's really about seeing people as people and not objects, and it's the best advice my father ever gave me. Actually, the only advice. My father, a 27-year police veteran before he retired and went into some more law enforcement, tells me one thing when I graduate the academy, Bill. He says this: Dad, give me your wisdom. You've been a police officer for 2 decades in Los Angeles County and then in another department. Give me your wisdom. And all he says is this: treat people the way you want to be treated.
Wow. And I just think about those words, how powerful, Travis. Amazing.
Yeah. And I do think law enforcement gets a bad rap because we de-escalate constantly. I mean, you think about the millions of contacts American law enforcement's making every week. You don't hear you're not seeing with the amount of guns. I mean, there were 180,000 guns bought on Black Friday alone, right? So for the millions of guns on the street and the violence we face and the mentally ill we face that are creating some issues that can be violent, not all of them, but can be, for all that we face and encounter, you're really not seeing the force like you would see, because we have tools and we have these de-escalation skills to handle that, and we really don't get credit for that. And I think I would ask our chiefs and sheriffs and leaders that are watching this to give your officers credit. It's time to learn a little bit from Donald Trump. Now, don't turn this off, because let me tell you what I'm talking about. Donald Trump did not use the mainstream media to communicate because he didn't trust the mainstream media. Well, what is law enforcement battling right now? We're battling the media because they're not giving the right message. Many of them are not. And so what did Donald Trump do? He used his own media. And we have the same opportunity to use that media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Law Officers Partnership page, which you could really, I mean, we build a website for you, and you have the opportunities to spread your message to thousands of people, and you can contact us to hear about that. So there's all kinds of ways for law enforcement to be their own media, and we've got to get into that habit. The days from 1980, 1990, when everyone watched cops and thinks policing are great, and the news media always found their feel-good stories about us and always talked good about us, those are over with. And it's time for us to take it to the next level and be our own media. What do you think about that, Bill?
Well, back to the Ohio State attacks, Travis, regarding the media, as Ohio State sent that alert message out, which I'm sure, every agency now has some sort of signal or code for, an active assailant or active shooter event. I know my own agency and a lot of our partner agencies for mutual aid have adopted this the same code. I'm not sure if Ohio State had one. Looking at what went down there, how quickly that alert went out, my impression is that officer on scene called that signal, which was able to give that alert out campus-wide. But back to that alert, Travis, that the media, or that was sent to the campus, the words run, hide, fight were in that alert. And one of the things that struck me from some of the media coverage was that the media was looking at those instructions, run, hide, fight, like they had just, something had just landed from the moon, or they discovered the cure for cancer. It was like they had never heard that. And I was watching some of the reporters, the way they even said it, you could clearly say those words, just say run, hide, fight, like it wasn't making sense to them. And in my mind, being in law enforcement for a while, I thought to myself, listen, that's old. That's a marketing slogan that's been around for 10 plus years. But the media was treating it as if they had just now discovered this and had never heard about it.
Right. Right. Do you think universities are prepared for what they're facing? I know a lot of them are prepared. It's obvious Ohio State was prepared and its officers was prepared, but universities as a whole, what else do they need to do, Bill?
I wish I had the answer to that, Travis, because I could probably save some lives and make a little bit of money as well. But I don't know the short answer, Travis. The long answer is that, listen, there's inherent risk in everything we do. I think schools have taken a number of precautions. Sadly, a lot of the lessons learned were from Virginia Tech. There were some mistakes made. And I don't really call them mistakes, because the officers did the best they could in a rapidly dynamic and unfolding situation. But universities have learned a lot. The alert is one. Universities have got to make sure they have that alert system, an updated text message or updated cell phone numbers to send to the students. I think Ohio State in this situation did everything right. That alert went out very quickly with very explicit instructions where the attack was on campus, where the danger was. So I think a lot of students had at least been instructed. It seemed like some of the students, I saw the news reports of some of the students being interviewed by the news media. It sounded like the students, the ones that were very close to the incident, were sheltering in place, and the ones that were far away left campus, which you couldn't ask for more from a law enforcement or administrative perspective from the school. So I think the alerts are one thing. The second thing is you have to have a highly trained and competent campus police department. Clearly, Ohio State had that.
Right.
You have to ensure those officers received the best training.
Was there ever any thought when you heard the news, Bill, that this may be Jim Harbaugh coming back to campus?
No,
Bad
no,
joke. Sorry.
bad joke. I know, and I've actually seen there have been some jokes on Twitter and Facebook. I've seen some of the jokes from some of the Ohio State fans poking fun at Jim Harbaugh.
Oh, well, Michigan's going to be there again. They're going to face again, I think, in the playoffs. But I actually haven't seen any of that. But obviously, it was very ironic that after that game on Saturday that was epic, we see this just a few days later. So
Absolutely.
unbelievable. Now, Bill, as we talk about training for active shooters, there's no way around it. We are training our officers to go inside a structure or outside of structure and to eliminate a threat of somebody doing violence to others. And eliminating that threat is pretty brutal. It's pretty violent. We've all been to the training. We've all seen those videos. How does that training mesh with what we're hearing so much today about we need to de-escalate, we need to be guardians, we don't need to be warriors? Is that intersecting appropriately? Can we do a better job of sending that message out? What do you think?
Well, for me personally, Travis, I never got wrapped up in the Guardian Warrior debate. I'm accused by some of my coworkers of being a little bit of a hippie police officer. You wouldn't know it, but I have a little bit of a aversion to guys looking like they're parachuting into Normandy in World War II. I think officers have all sorts of equipment on their vest that looks like they're in a military unit, and I understand that there's a need to have your equipment, but part of our job is public perception. So call me what you want. You want to call me a warrior, guardian? I don't care. I'm going to go every day and I'm going to do my job. I'm going to serve the public. So I tried not to get wrapped up in that debate. And I had a discussion with a friend and fellow officer recently, and I think those words, I heard some of the candidates were tossing around, from the presidential election, guardian versus warrior, and we need to ensure our officers are guardians, not warrior. It became almost like a catchphrase for the election.
It's obviously in the playbook. I heard a recent police chief that was new to the agency, and we're going to write about this. He came in his first press conference, he said, we're getting rid of the warrior mentality and we're going to be guardians. Well, that's fine and dandy until an active shooter shows up in one of your schools and killing your kids, right? And so I'm pretty insulted personally, Bill, that politicians and chiefs and sheriffs do not trust us enough to go, we know the difference, right? I know when I need to be taking care of a situation like a guardian, which is the vast majority of the time. And I also know the difference when I'm going to go in there and save somebody's life, and if I have to use violence to do it, I will do it to save massive lives. And so it's kind of insulting to me when I hear so-called politician or chief or whoever kind of come at us with it's one or the other, because the truth is it's both, is it not?
Absolutely. And my department, about a year and a half ago, our chief Joe Price, just before he retired, instituted a new sort of groundbreaking. We were one of the first agencies in the country to do it. We reworked our general order, so it was no longer called use of force. It was called response to threats. And that was, I know you're going to probably wipe your brow with sweat here, Travis, but that was a PERF initiative, something they had put forward. We were one of the first agencies to go with this response to threats. And in the presentation, I thought our chief did a great job. He said exactly that. Listen, there's a time to be a guardian and a time to be a warrior. Yep. So, I use the expression a lot, Travis. I'm a nice guy until it's time not to be a nice guy anymore. And, I also use, walk softly, but not carry a big stick, carry the biggest stick. And that's what we do. We carry the biggest stick. We can take somebody's life if necessary. So,
yeah.
I think about something I think about analogy, Travis, a lot is, you look at the greatest generation, you look at some of these World War II veterans, these guys saw incredible bloody combat all over the shores of Europe and Africa and all over the world to defend democracy, defeat the Nazis and the Japanese. And what did some of these guys do? That, my own grandfather, my dad's dad, left his army uniform at a bus station because he was done with that life. And he came back and was a mechanic for, 30, 40 years. So I think about that analogy sometime that, think of all the brutal combat. These guys were warriors when it was time and became guardians. So I totally agree with you.
Oh, I love that analogy. That's an article, by the way, Bill. Uh,
Okay, I owe you
you,
one, Travis.
you mentioned about the militarization of the police. That's obviously been a hot topic. President Obama obviously has restricted the 1033 program. In fact, we were contacted by the head of that program, the Department of Defense, just this week because we've been writing on that. And so we're catching somebody's attention, but they restricted it in the sense where they're making it a little more difficult to get helmets, to get riot gear, to get breaching tools. You can still get it, but you've got to jump through a lot more hoops to get that. I know they've also restricted federal grants to where anything deemed military equipment you cannot get federal grants for. Well, that became personal to me when I tried to get some of my officers breaching tools, which enables them to get into a residence quicker in a search warrant to make it safer, and that was denied. So I think the media is kind of pitching around that all these police officers run around getting tanks, when the truth is we don't need tanks. We just need some realistic equipment that's out there to make us safer. And telling us to take it out of our own budget doesn't really work because every department out there is cash strapped. We rely on outside entities to do that. So is there going to be a tipping point, Bill? And I agree with you. We don't need to be running around like, World War II soldiers all the time. But there obviously, when I see Baltimore officers go into a riot where people are throwing rocks and bottles with no helmets, that really bothers me. Or I see officers in Ferguson go into a violent riot where they've been shooting at people with no equipment on whatsoever but a Class A uniform because they don't want to intimidate people. Those things bother me because our officers are opened up to being hurt or injured. Do you see a tipping point in America with these attacks where finally people will actually get it and they'll understand that there's certain equipment that law enforcement needs?
Yeah, I do, Travis. And as I said repeatedly, I think we're at a point in this country, we're debating the role of law enforcement, and I'm not sure where that debate's going to go and how it's going to be settled. But, let's back up a sec to that program. I think the media jumped on a couple incidences where police departments had ordered some equipment, some rocket launchers. I think there were cases of grenades.
Favorites, Bill, is one of my favorites is the bayonets. And
yeah.
And I tell you what happened. Here's what happened, because we don't use bayonets, but here's what happened. They marched these cops into a room with old military gear, and they go, "Take what you want, boys." And you know what cops do?
Yep.
We take everything that's free.
Absolutely.
And so some dude saw some bayonets and went, "Oh, that's going to be cool." And he grabbed him up. It got written down, and that's what the media jumped on is bayonets,
yes.
Rocket launchers and tanks.
And that's exactly what I was going to touch on, Travis, is the Defense Department was trying to get rid of this equipment because it was surplus equipment anyway. They wanted it off the books. And exactly right. Somebody in some department said, "You know what, I'll take that stuff," not thinking that they would ever use it. And so the media, I think, jumped on that. We're completely missing the fact that the Defense Department, like I said, this was surplus equipment they were trying to get rid of. The media jumped on that. But, I think, once again, the militarization of police came a sexy catchphrase. People were using it a lot. And, once again, it was white noise to me, Travis. I didn't let it affect me. I'm going to work every day. I'm going to serve the public. I'm going to do my job. But I think, there's going to be a debate on what sort of police the public in this country want. And I don't know when that debate's going to be solved. So, hey, look, the public, there's been an outcry. We want our officers to have body cams. So a lot of departments, what they do, DC is rolling them out as fast as they can get them. The public there in DC, the citizenry said, "Listen, we want body cams." So MPD, the Metropolitan Police Department, they're trying to outfit every officer with body cameras. Good thing.
Yep.
So I think as we move forward, the militarization of police, Travis, I don't know where we're going to go with this. I can tell you, I don't think the public wants a police department to have a tank. Now, an armored personnel carrier, an APC or a Bearcat is a little bit different. And there are situations where a Bearcat is absolutely necessary.
We saw that in San Bernardino. We saw that in Orlando. We see that in a lot of places.
Absolutely. So there is a time and place for those. So I think, not only are we debating this in our country, but I think as cops, as law enforcement officers, we have got to be smart and make sure that we are using the equipment properly that we're given for the right situation.
Bill, I love your attitude. And those of you watching, I told you this was going to be epic. Be sure to tell everybody about this show. This is just the beginning. Bill's going to be visiting us often. And Bill, one more question, because I love your attitude. Talk to the police officers on the street. watching this today, because you're very encouraging, you're very motivating. You had the right attitude talking about let it be white noise, serve the public. Encourage those officers. What would you tell them right now?
You know, the first thing I would say, Travis, is, listen, this is a dangerous profession. You could be killed or seriously hurt on every single call for service, every day you go to work. Make sure you kiss your wife, kiss your husband, your significant other, your children. Make sure, Travis, I tell my son every single day, he's 8, and I tell him every day how much I love him, how much he means to me. I'm not ashamed. I kiss him on the forehead. We roughhouse a little bit, but I make sure every night I tuck him into bed, and I kiss him, and I kiss my wife. I make sure, I kiss her when I leave for work in the morning. So that's the first thing I would tell. Make sure your family knows how much they mean to you, because you never know what day you're going to walk out that door and not make it back. And that's the sad reality of our profession, Travis. It is a dangerous, dangerous profession. So that would be the first thing. And the second thing is what you and I have talked about already throughout this show, Travis, is the mental preparation. Just being prepared mentally every day. And it is probably one of the most difficult aspects of our job, as we talked about, Travis. That complacency is like a cancer in our profession, and it's very difficult to fight that off in every single call for service. I find myself sometimes on calls for service sort of getting punched in the face by myself. I kind of realize, oh, wait, I'm daydreaming, or let me get my hands out of my pockets, let me get my hands up. It happens. I'm trying to minimize those. And like you said during the intro, Travis, there are things you can do every day to minimize the risk. Wear your seatbelt, wait for backup, slow down. Not only slow down driving, but slow down your tactical decision-making the best you can. Right. And the fourth thing I would say, Travis, is just let all this stuff be white noise. Wake up every day. Remember what it was like that first day you got the gun and a badge, graduated the academy, or remember that first day you got released from field training, that feeling. Try to have that feeling every single day you go to work.
Couldn't have said it any better. Bill Gage, he's one of the best, and he's one of ours here at Law Officer. And Bill, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been an honor.
Absolutely. Travis, great to be on. Call me anytime. Love to be on. Real honor. I'm a big fan of Law Officer. I write for it, and I'm still a big fan. I check it several times a day. So keep up the good work on your end, Travis.
I love it. And for those of you watching, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a partner with us. Be safe. Be careful. God bless. You've been watching Law Officer Live.